ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Jerusalem's Gate. I tell you what, it reminds me when I was a little kid, the Cold War era. I remember in the elementary practicing an attack and how to hide under the desk and stuff like that. It was it's pretty scary. But I tell you, it looks like we may be back in another arms race. The INF treaty that Reagan and Gorbachev signed, I think in '85, if memory serves me right. I think what happened, both sides, I believe, and it's my personal opinion, that both sides didn't keep up to their end of the bargain. I think with technology advancing so much lately in the last, say, decade, that there was no way to stay true to the treaty and have a modernized nuclear arsenal. I just don't think it was possible. So I think both both us and Russia broke it. Personal opinion, what's that old saying? I'm middle age, upper middle age, and we used to say that in a quarter make a phone call, but we don't have phone booths no more. And y'all people my age, we all remember the phone booths. Now we got the cell phones, of course. But let's dive in. Washington Times, Russia warns of multinational arms race arising from abandoned weapons treaty. And I got a video. It's coming from RT that's going to play after this. I hope you stick around to watch it. It's very interesting. Let's dive into this article. Let's see. Here it is. Russia warned Tuesday that a multilateral arms race risk resulting from the United States withdrawing from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces INF Treaty, a Cold War era weapons agreement recently abandoned by President Trump. The Russian Foreign Ministry made the dire prediction in a statement issued amid the Trump administration announcing steps to last month to formally withdraw the U.S. from the bilateral agreement by August 2nd. It's obvious, quote, it's obvious that the treaty's collapse will have very negative repercussions for international security and stability. The ministry said a multilateral arms race may start simultaneously in several regions, and the system of control over weapons will be subject to further erosion. This may result in serious threats for a stable regime of non-proliferation treaty and prospects of further nuclear disarmament. So, it's all the technology advancing. There's no way they could kept true to the treaty. I tell you, I'm not saying I predicted it on my own ability or anything, but many years ago, in prayer, the Lord warned me that Russia was to make a power appearance in the East, in the oil-rich East, and certain, God sometimes reveals secrets, and believe it or not, that was before they entered into conflict in Syria, and certainly about a year or two later they appeared in Syria. So it's kind of weird. God does reveal secrets sometimes. But let's dive into the scripture. And we went over this before, but I think it's really important with the new modernization of nuclear weapons. Now they have tactical nuclear weapons that has a lower bang and less radiation that would be used in place of a full-scale nuclear bomb. This is coming from 2 Peter chapter 3. Now go down to verse 10. Verse 10, right here. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that therein shall be burned up. Now Peter, the Apostle Peter, had no idea what he was penning. He had no idea. You notice how they called it that day, first before we go over this, the heavens, in which the heavens here, when it's translated, means the first heaven where the clouds are. The heavens shall pass away with a great noise, like a bomb going off, a nuclear bomb. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that therein shall be burned up. Now, what could possibly he be talking about back 2,000 years ago. There was no such a thing that can do that. Notice how they call it, excuse me 1 second. Notice how they call it the day of the Lord. They don't call it the day of the devil or the day of man or anything. They call that day the day of the Lord. Now, here's something. In a couple of verses down, he repeats it. And whenever something is usually repeated twice in a short, in the next verse or two, it means the utter importance, the point that the writer's trying to get across. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God. Now here they call it the day of God, wherein the heavens, they talk about the first heavens where the clouds are, being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, you don't have to be a biblical theologian. You do not have to go to seminary to figure what the Apostle Peter was penning. You don't have to. I mean, it's common sense. He's talking about a nuclear exchange, a nuclear catastrophe, atomic catastrophe. And that's my personal opinion, but I think most of y'all will agree with me. Okay, well, we got a video from RT. It talks about Russia, what their opinion on the INF Treaty and the nuclear arms race, possible nuclear arms race. Make sure my terminology is right there because people misinterpret things so easily. So I hope you stick around. It's coming up right now. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Jerusalem's Gate. We hope you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. We love you, and here comes the video.
Russia's foreign minister has warned against the emergence of a new arms race on an even greater scale than the Cold War. Speaking at a conference on disarmament in Geneva, Sergei Lavrov said he regrets America's willingness to undermine some cornerstone treaties on controlling weapon stockpiles. Well, let's go live now to RT's Maria Finoshna for more of the details on this. Maria, certainly an issue with massive ramifications. What else did the foreign minister have to say?
Hi, Yunin. Well, speaking at the Disarmament Conference, the international forum that brings together 65 states, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, I have to say, has been very critical and has in fact accused America of destabilizing world security. Lavrov has expressed his deepest concerns, frustration and fears over the current situation in the field of non-proliferation of weapons and global arms control, emphasizing that efforts designed to destroy global basic agreements that prove to be doing their job well in guaranteeing world security and protecting international peace are rising, and this is a very dangerous tendency. Lavrov has particularly referred to America's recent withdrawal from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, known as the INF Treaty, signed between Moscow and Washington back in 1987, warning that the recent developments may turn threats of nuclear war into grim reality. Let's take a listen now.
What we are now hearing is talk of the possibility of unleashing a limited nuclear war. For Russia, and I hope all the other countries represented here, such a prospect is unacceptable. However, such a scenario could become a reality if we together fail to find a sensible alternative to recent tendencies aimed at undermining the very edifice of arms control treaties. Should there be a new arms race, a lot of countries will rely on their nuclear and missile arsenals as the only guarantee of their national security.
Following America's withdrawal from the INF Treaty, Russia has responded by saying it will also suspend its obligations under the agreement. But speaking at the conference in Geneva earlier on Wednesday, Minister Lavrov has stressed that it wasn't Russia's decision, it wasn't Russia's initiative. Russia has simply responded, and Russia remains open for the dialogue and is not interested in any way in arms race with Washington. But as Moscow can see right now, Washington is not ready for this dialogue, and this is what Minister Lavrov has reiterated one more time. And he has brought, among other things, America's recent steps in developing space missile defense program, alarming steps, as Lavrov believes. Let's take a listen.
In the US, funds have been earmarked for the establishment of a space missile defense system, as well as putting strike capabilities into orbit. This is opening Pandora's box.
Well, as you can hear, a lot has been said, including many critical things. But as Minister Lavrov has said, Russia hopes and believes that its Western partners, colleagues responsible for global security and at the end of the day, the future of the mankind will hear Russia's voice and follow the right path. Back to you.
Bringing us the very latest, RT's Maria Finoshna, thank you.